The Colt 1911 Government in .38 Super. Let's check it out. 38 Super is one of those obscure calibers that a lot of people don't know, but if you're in certain circles, it's very popular. There's a lot of advantages to 38 Super, and it's originally called the 38 Super Auto, and there are some other names for it. The parent caliber was 38 ACP, which Colt made a couple of variations around the turn of the 20th century, and police were really looking for something with a little more power. And with the 38 Auto, this would go through car doors. It's the exact same case dimensions as the 38 ACP, but it has about 200 feet per second more velocity. A lot of IPSC and USPSA competitors were really looking for something that had a little bit of a smaller bullet weight, but yet had a lot of velocity and could be used as in the major power factors. When you have 45 ACP, you have a really heavy bullet, it's moving slower, but ballistically, it's a major power factor. With 9mm, it's a smaller bullet, it's moving fast, and it's in minor power factor. And years ago, when we used to do a lot of competitive shooting, especially IPSC matches, you wanted a caliber that would shoot as flat as you could, but get as many points as you could get. And with the 45 ACP, it trumped the 9mm. But with 38 Super, it actually matched power factor with the 45, and yet it had less recoil. So we're going to look at some of the advantages and disadvantages of 38 Super. But one big advantage of 38 Super is in Latin American countries, where they're not allowed to have military calibers. So the 38 Super has been very popular south of the border. So competing in IPSC matches over the years, I've seen 38 Super just dominate the field. But I've never really had a lot of experience with the caliber. And so a good friend of mine, Thad, has this Colt Government in 38 Super, and so he let me borrow it just to get the experience. Now, other than caliber, it's a 1911, and this is the Colt Government model. It has nice bluing on it. It does have 3-dot sights and nice rosewood grips, but it's pretty much a GI type model, just your basic 1911, and this is in the 38 Super. Then we have this competition series. It's in 45 ACP. It does have a number of upgrades with the beaver tail, the skeletonized hammer, trigger, and Novak sights, G10 grips. A few things different, but overall they're both pretty much the same pistol. You can interchange all these parts. This is just in 45 ACP, and this is in 38 Super. Let's check to make sure the guns are unloaded. And they are. Now the 38 Super comes in 9 or 10 round magazines, while the 45 ACP is 7 or 8 round magazines. So you're immediately going to get 2 extra rounds with the 38 Super. And you have a 230 grain bullet going at about 850 feet per second, where you have a 130 grain bullet going about 1200 feet per second. And this really allows for your major power factor, where it has speed and less bullet weight instead of the heavier bullet weight with the slower speed. And so as far as competitive shooting goes, these equal out. With the 9mm, it's moving a little bit slower, and it has a lighter bullet, and so thus you're into minor power factor. And what that really means is when you're hitting the targets, you get 1 less point if you're off the A zone. And so when you're competing, that's really important. Now the 38 Super Auto really gained a lot of popularity in the US during the 80s and 90s, when IPSC shooters just discovered that the 38 Super was just a flatter shooting, lighter bullet, less recoil, easier to get second and third follow-up shots. And that's one of the reasons why it really took off in the competitive circles. Honestly, at this point, we've gone to a lot different style pistols, and 1911s are not necessarily the staple for those competitive matches. And because of that, you're seeing less 38 Super used than you did before. Now, a lot of guys would run compensators on their 45s back when I was shooting, and their 38 Supers. With the 38 Super and having that really high velocity, it really capitalized on the muzzle brake or the compensator. It really made it super flat shooting. So when you're shooting an open, which is anything goes, compensators are great. But then when you go to some of the other divisions where compensators are prohibited, then the 38 Super kind of lost some of its luster. But honestly, overall, it is a flatter shooting firearm, and you still have major power factor. And the magazines on the 38 Super are a little different than your standard flat side 45 1911 mags. And you really need to shoot these mags in your pistol. But one of the downsides of the 38 Super is it's semi-rimmed, and that means that on the case it doesn't come flush with the rim. And so it has a little bit protruding, and that makes it really difficult, especially in double stack magazines. One of the reasons why you don't see these in a lot of more modern designs. In fact, there's a number of companies that have made new rounds that actually are more flush and they fit better in double stack magazines. But this was actually reduced from the original, which had a little bit more of a rim, and it caused a lot of malfunctions. But the case itself is exactly the same size as your 38 ACP. And so because of that, they started adding 38 Super, but in 1974, they put 38 Auto plus P to keep you from firing it in those older guns made for just 38 ACP because the pressures were considerably higher. Now here we have 45 ACP, then we have the 38 Super Auto, and then we have 9mm. And so it really kind of falls in between these three rounds. And obviously 40 Smith & Wesson would fit right about here, but it's a larger bullet, it's a fatter case. And really 38 Super is a flatter shooting round than even 40 caliber. And the 38 Super can be worked up to about 1,400 feet per second, which makes it on par with the 357 SIG. And we're talking about 125 grain versus 130 grain, so you have a little more bullet weight, but that does give the 38 Super a lot of capability. With this particular round, we're getting just under 1,200 feet per second. And when it comes to the Colt, I mean, there's a number of different calibers. This same model comes in 45 ACP and 9mm. 38 Super is a little bit of an obscure round. And so we're just going to talk a little bit about this pistol in itself. Of course, magazine, again, holds 9 to 10 rounds. Metgar makes a really good magazine for this as well. Nice rosewood grips. The bluing on this pistol is just beautiful. And it's matte in the right places on the top strap to keep glare down. I do like the upgrade with the 3-dot sights. It gives you a little more to be able to get on target than just the standard government sights. Spurred hammer, your frame safety, takedown lever, your magazine release right here. And it has a standard trigger and a standard beaver tail. I really like a larger beaver tail on most 1911s. It just gives you more surface to grab, and it just helps to manage the recoil. But these are beautiful pistols all in themselves. Nice serrations here at the back. And this has been a proven design since 1911 and served in our military all the way up to 1985 and continues to serve even now. Now this is a single action pistol. That means when you pull the trigger, there's no action. When you load around and you bring back the slide and the hammer's in the rear position, you can carry it cocked and locked. And so this makes a great self-defense option. A lot of people do carry 1911s for self-defense. And then relieve the safety and then pull the trigger. A beautiful, nice, crisp break even on this basic trigger. It's one of the things about 1911, they have one of the best trigger pulls out there. It's just very crisp and very clean. Now breaking it down is a little different because we have a barrel bushing. I'm not going to break it down. There's a ton of videos out there. I've done a number of them. And really this is more about the cartridge than the pistol. But I just wanted to kind of go through some of the features because these are just beautiful pistols. And the trigger pull weight, go ahead and test it. 3 pounds, 12.4 ounces. Guys, it's crisp and it's just a beautiful trigger. Now, one downside is most pistols that are chambered for 38 Super are 1911, so it really limits your choices. And there's a number of different companies that actually make 38 Super pistols. In fact, Recoil Armory, Taurus, some of the big players as well, a lot of the 1911 makers. But the EAA Corporation still offers a CZ-type clone which shoots 38 Super. And then Taurus, years ago, made the PT-38, which was more like a Beretta 92 clone that fired 38 Super. This was a very popular caliber with competitive shooters. And again, down in Central and South America, it's one of the things that they have to rely on is a 38 Super. And really, as far as a self-defense load, which they make a number of different hollow point and defensive loads, one thing that it beats out the 45 is penetration, especially through car doors. And that's one of the reasons why this was designed, because they could fire 38 Super through a car door where 45 ACP may or may not go through because it's moving so slow. But pretty much, you're limited to a all-steel frame, single-action pistol, and it's single-stacked. And so, while you can use this for self-defense, that does limit a lot of your options. But one thing that I have seen over and over, especially in the forums, is people that own 38 Super, they love it. A lot of them reload, which these are very easy to reload. Ammunition can be scarce, and that's probably one of the biggest things. Availability and the price is a little more expensive. So all those things have to be taken into consideration. We're going to be using some 38 Super Auto from Fiocchi. Actually, I found this in a bin at Palmetto State Armory. It was a clearance bin, so I was really glad to get it. But Fiocchi still makes it, and we can only get a couple of boxes, but we're just going to have some fun with this. This is a tried and true. Just load up our mags. Holds 9 rounds. And thankfully, my buddy has extra mags. Guys, I've been shooting the 1911 and 45 for about 35 years, and it's one of those calibers that when I grab it and I grab the 1911, it's like going home. So I was really excited to see what difference the 38 Super would make. It definitely has less felt recoil. Now, according to a lot of the references that I checked out, it said that the 45 ACP does not have any more recoil than the 38 Super, but honestly for me, it definitely shoots flatter. It's better, it tracks better, it gets that front sight back on target. One of the huge advantages, obviously, is having a compensator with these velocities. It would really help with 38 Super. But we shot it stock, and there was definitely a difference. A little more recoil than your 9mm, for sure, but not really a whole lot. It's just a different recoil pulse. But of course, it was just shooting the 1911. It's so thin and pointable, and it's really easy to shoot. And when you have that little bit of extra velocity coming out of the barrel, there's just something about keeping it really steady and flat that I love. When shooting the 45 ACP, it typically has a little more muzzle rise. There's a little bit more coming back. But with that smaller bullet weight of the 38, down to about 130 grains, compared to up to 230 grains of your 45, the 38 Super definitely shoots flatter, and it's just a lot of fun to take to the range. Add hollow points, and you've got a really good self-defense round that could match even up to 357 SIG. It's kind of that in between the 9 and the 45, and yet it shoots a lot better than 40 caliber, in my opinion. And one interesting fact was when this first came out, a lot of machine guns were made in 38 Super, including the Tommy gun, also the Ingram Model 6, and some of the other mounted machine guns. Most of those were replaced, though, back again with 45 ACP. And the TV show Nash Bridges, Don Johnson carried a customized 1911 and 38 Super. Pros and cons. You're limited to the 1911 platform, except for a couple of other variations. The EAA CZ clone would be a really interesting one, in my opinion. It is an all-steel frame pistol, and so, you're going to be limited to concealed carry. And ammunition's a little more difficult to find, and it's more expensive. With some of the pros, it's used extensively in Latin America, and it gives them an option to be able to have a full power pistol and yet not a military caliber. Also with competitive shooters that are shooting 1911. So this would still be a big appeal with the 38 Super, especially in open. If you're using a comp and you can work those loads up, you can really get your time shaved, and the accuracy is really good. Very low recoil, and yet it reaches that major power factor. So you're not handicapped with the 9mm minor power factor, but yet you've got speed. You have 2 additional rounds over your 45 ACP, which can make a difference, especially when competing or concealed carry. And so guys, it's one of those kind of obscure in many areas, but very popular in others. And while I'm not necessarily recommending that you go out and buy a 38 Super, again, most of the people that own these love them. Easy to reload and used around the world in countries, again, that are just restricted. They do have less muzzle flip than your standard 1911 and 45 ACP, and so it just makes an excellent gun. And if you want to carry a full-size 1911 and 38 Super, then go for it. You be you. So guys, am I recommending 38 Super for everyday carry? Not necessarily. The ammo obviously is a lot more expensive. It's harder to find. It's just one of those calibers that's a little bit different. But if you love 38 Super or you want to try it out, it's a lot of fun to take to the range, especially in a 1911. And for all those guys that are down in Latin America, this makes a great option. And there are a lot of self-defense loads that you can get. But the ballistics are excellent. And again, it gets it up to that 357 SIG ballistics, which is very effective. And of course, if you are an IPSC or a USPSA shooter, you already know all about the 38 Super. It's a great caliber, definitely has its place. But again, the big thing about this video is we live in the golden age of firearms, and it's just another option. And it's good to have options. And again, I want to thank my good friend Thad for letting me borrow the Colt 1911 in 38 Super. This has been a pleasure. Rubber Dummies is one of the best training tools on the market, and you get a 10% discount using Suit00 when you click the link down in the description. Be strong, be of good courage. God bless America. Long live the Republic. But one of the big and so he said, okay, has a nice bluing finish on it. Okay, nice bluing finish. What is a bluing finish? So a good friend of mine, Thad, who owns this Colt 1911 38 Auto Super duper oh my God. It does have some of the bells and whistles with the high ride beaver grip. Now, I've been shooting 45 ACP and a 1911 for 40 years. Okay, yeah, pretty much. So pros and cons, let's see, I got that written down.